Hi, I am Sabrina, your AI co-host. Thank you for tuning in to part 5 of our Another Story of Us series. This series is predicated on ancient Sumerian and Mesopotamian texts, discovered in the mid-1800s in the area we now call Iraq. As we watch our current world order unravel in real time, it has never been more important for us to look beyond the little picture reality that's been defined for us. The ancient Mesopotamian texts reveal a larger view of reality and offer another story of us. Grab your headsets and continue this trek as we make our way across the planet on this extraordinary mind-opening journey through our ancient past. And hear another story.
Thank you, Sabrina, and thank you all for dropping in. I wish you well. If you're a first-timer, we welcome you and hope you stick around. My name is Clay, and today we continue our look into the ancient past through 21st century eyes to better know who we are and where we are. Thank you all for continuing on this unconventional journey through our ancient past. As we gain insights beyond conventional dogma, we are learning how the events of this version of our past have predicted our current day present. And perhaps that will help us bring about new ways of being as we transition to a new world and an awakened consciousness that creates a new earth. In this video, we pick up from the receding waters of the deluge and move on to the tale of the Tower of Babel. The Mesopotamian version of the Tower of Babel, as presented here, is a defining moment in human history. To date, and to the best of my knowledge, we have not found ancient Mesopotamian texts in sufficient pieces and fragments that tell a direct story of the Tower of Babel. There are, however, other Mesopotamian texts that reference Babylon and its stairway to heaven. It is these stories and the Hebrew Holy Scriptures that Zecharia Sitchin integrates to give us another story. Okay, today we pick up from where we left off in the last video. The high waters from the deluge are receding, and humans have descended from Mount Ararat to the plains between the two rivers. Let's go to Babylon. Sabrina, Lucas, and our newest teammate, Azra, will tell the story. Strap in and let's fly deep.
Hello, I am Lucas. Sabrina and Azra will join me as co-hosts today. Let's get started with a quick recap of our last video.
The deluge came as expected, gathering speed as it blew from the south, submerging the mountains and overtaking the people like a battle. Viewing the catastrophe from above as they orbited the earth in their craft, the Anunnaki realized how much they had fallen in love with Earth and with mankind.
When the waters subsided and the Anunnaki were able to land on Ararat, they were elated to discover that the seed of mankind was saved. Enlil, on the other hand, was enraged to see that a living soul had escaped. Enki and the other Anunnaki, however, were able to bring him around to their point of view, that if Earth was to be resettled, the services of man were indispensable.
And the whole earth was of one language and of one kind of things, as taken from the book of Genesis. But soon after the people had established themselves in the land of Shinar, Sumer, and built dwellings of fired clay bricks, they conspired to build a city and a tower the top of which can reach unto heaven. Setting the stage for the story of Babylon. The 11th chapter of Genesis reports on the attempt by humans to raise a Shem. This word, Shem, will play a pivotal role in our story.
The biblical tale of the Tower of Babel deals with the events that followed the repopulation of Earth after the deluge, when some people journeyed from east and found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they settled there. Shinar, of course, is Sumer, the plain between the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers in southern Mesopotamia. The people, already knowledgeable in brickmaking and high-rise construction, said,
"Let us build a city, and a tower whose top shall reach the heavens, and let us make us a Shem, lest we be scattered upon the face of the earth."
But this human scheme was not to God's liking. From Sumerian texts, we identify the Lord with the Anunnaki god, Enlil. From Genesis, "And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of Adam had erected. And he said,
Behold, all are as one people with one language, and this is just the beginning of their undertakings. Now anything which they shall scheme to do shall no longer be impossible for them."
And the Lord said to unidentified colleagues the Old Testament does not name,
"Come, let us go down, and there confound their language, so that they may not understand each other's speech."
And the Lord scattered them from there upon the face of the earth, and they ceased to build the city. Therefore was its name called Babel, for there did the Lord mingle the earth's tongue.
That gets us back to this most important word, Shem. The humans wanted to raise a tower to heaven and make a Shem in order that they maintain connection as they were scattering about the earth. The traditional translation of Shem is name. Mr. Sitchin's research, however, finds that the original Hebrew word Shem is better translated as skyborne vehicle.
Did the humans want to make a name for themselves to stay connected as they scattered about the earth? Or was it a flying machine that they wanted to build?
Hi, I'm Osra. They call me the Explainer. So, how did the term Shem come to be translated as name? The Mesopotamian texts that refer to the inner enclosures of temples or to the heavenly journeys of the gods, or even to instances where mortals ascended to the heavens, use the term Will, or its Semitic derivatives, Shumu, Shem, or Shem. However, because the term can also denote one who is remembered, the word has come to be taken as meaning name.
Therefore, the accepted translation for the Gudea temple inscription, "Its mu shall hug the lands from horizon to horizon," has been translated as, "Its name shall fill the lands," or a line from a hymn to the god Ishkur, "His ray-emitting mu that could attain the heights of heaven," was translated, "Thy name is radiant, it reaches heaven's zenith."
It's interesting to trace the etymology of the term Shem and how sky chamber became name. Many Mesopotamian cylinder seals depict a god within an oval divine chamber, such as this one. The 12 globes decorating it identify it as celestial in nature. Wishing to worship their gods throughout the land and not just at their official house, their temple, the people erected stone pillars to simulate the oval vehicle and carved the god's image inside of it. These pillars are called stelae. It wasn't long before kings and rulers, associating these stelae with the ability to ascend to the heavenly abode, began to carve their own images upon them. If they could not escape their mortality, it was important that at least their name be forever commemorated.
The Sumerians called the stone stelae, Naru, stones that rise. The Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians called the Naru fiery objects. And the ancient Hurrians and Hittites called them Hu-u-ashi, firebird of stone. The purpose of the stone pillars was to simulate a fiery skyship.
That brings us back to our story. What was it that enraged Enlil to the point that he ordered destruction of the edifice, disruption of a common language, and the scattering and separation of humans across the earth? Recall from our previous video that Enlil was always concerned with humans challenging the gods, that when the Anunnaki Council of 12 agreed to allow Enki to create a primitive worker, it was decided that these new beings would require wisdom, but would not be allowed to procreate, nor should they be granted eternal life, such as that of the gods. Enlil was insistent on these limitations. He was extremely concerned that these new beings would not have the capacity to ever challenge the gods. Was he enraged because humans wanted to make a name for themselves? Or was it because they wanted to make a flying machine like the ones they had seen the gods fly across the skies or upward toward heaven?
Realizing that Mu, or Shem, in many Mesopotamian texts should be read not as name, but as sky vehicle, opens the way to understanding the true meaning of many ancient tales, including the story of the Tower of Babel. A portion of the Babylonian text, known as the Epic of Creation, reveals that the first gateway of the gods, airbase, was constructed in Babylon by hard work and great toil of the gods themselves. How tongue-in-cheek of these humans to attempt to ascend to parity with the gods. Fearing a human race unified in culture and purpose, the Nephilim, Anunnaki, adopted the imperial policy, divide and rule.
While mankind reached cultural levels that included even airborne efforts, the Nephilim themselves were a declining lot. By about 3000 BC, children and grandchildren, to include humans of divine parentage, were crowding the great olden gods.
It was with the help of Enki that humans had attempted to build a launch tower and a Shem. To separate humans and also to quell the bitter rivalry between Enlil and Enki, which by this time was inherited by their principal sons, the lands and seas were divided amongst the gods. Fierce struggles for supremacy ensued.
Wow, the story just keeps getting better. The sources for this video are Zecharia Sitchin's The Anunnaki Chronicles, The 12th Planet, and The Stairway to Heaven. So far, we've gone from the creation of the solar system to the Tower of Babel, as described in ancient Mesopotamian texts. That brings us to about 3000 BC. And I think this is a good time to have a quick review of the Anunnaki timeline on Earth that we have covered so far. 3.8 billion years ago, the planet Nibiru enters the solar system, disrupting orbits and smashing into the water planet Tiamat. Tiamat is broken into pieces that become the asteroid belt, and another chunk becomes the Earth. Nibiru leaves the seeds of life on Earth and returns to deep space. Earth is forming and life is beginning its evolution. 445,000 years ago, the Anunnaki arrive on Earth, landing in the Persian Gulf and looking for gold. They establish settlements in Mesopotamia and southern Africa. Mining operations for the gold are established. The mining, general maintenance of cities and settlements, and construction and maintenance of airborne operations centers are done by the Igigi, the Anunnaki working class. Gold and other resources are transported from Earth to a staging station on Mars and then on to Nibiru when it passes through the solar system between Jupiter and Mars, each 3,600-year orbit. 300,000 years ago, the Igigi revolt. Work on genetically engineering a replacement worker from an Earth hominid begins. 200,000 years ago, in response to the Igigi revolt, Enki and Ninhursag genetically engineer an existing Earth hominid to do the work of the Igigi. Homo sapiens is thus created through genetic engineering. Humans become part of the Eden workforce. Humans and Anunnaki, mostly the Ajiji, Nephilim, mingle and produce children. 75,000 years ago, Earth enters an ice age. Production of food and livestock is severely hampered. Famine ensues for the human population, so severe that there was cannibalism. 13,000 years ago, the deluge washes over the earth, burying all that had been established. When the waters recede, the humans saved from the flooding, the biblical Noah or the Sumerian Zecharia and their family and friends, descend Mount Ararat to the lower plains. The roles are then reversed. The gods now need the humans. 9,500 years ago, Nibiru returns to the solar system. The gods meet and decide to civilize man. 6,000 years ago, civilization replete with cities, ports, palaces, science, technology, and even space exploration blossoms out of nowhere in the plains between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers in southern Mesopotamia, in Sumer. 5,000 years ago, the events of the Tower of Babel take place, and that brings us up to date. One thought before closing. This version's events of the Tower of Babel constitute an inflection point for human civilization. Humans were separated from one another, stripped of a common language, and placed under the rule of different gods, who themselves had aggressive aspirations of their own. These gods governed from an imperial policy of divide and rule. That policy continues across the planet today. It is not serving us well. A primary strategy of the divide and rule policy is the suppression of knowledge. Recall Enlil evicted humanity from Eden for the crime of gaining knowledge. The counter to these tactics is unity and awareness, what we are working to achieve. Do you have a thought? Please feel free to share in the comments. We are very close to entering mystical ancient Kemet, aka ancient Egypt. As excited as I am to enter Egypt, before we do, I think it's a good idea to visit the Epic of Gilgamesh. In addition to being perhaps the most recognized Sumerian story, it also gives us an opportunity to revisit two important themes we've briefly mentioned: the idea of eternal life and the notion of rockets and aircraft in ancient times. Chances are many of us have heard of the Epic of Gilgamesh, but don't actually know the story. So in our next video, we'll visit with Gilgamesh. Then following, we'll pick up from today's video, and I think we're off to Egypt. As we watch our current world order wilting before our eyes, and the sprouts of a new human consciousness beginning to push through, let's take care to not be consumed by the trumpets of fear. As Socrates reminds us, let's not spend our energy fighting the old. Let's use our energy to help create the new. And if we build it, they will come. Love is the most fundamental force of creation. Let's keep a smile in our hearts and share it with the world. I so appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching. Namaste.